to a seminal moment in the civil rights movement, the 60th anniversary of what is now known as Bloody Sunday. Marchers linking arms and crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge. 60 years ago, peaceful protesters were brutally beaten by state troopers and local police. Why some say there's still unfinished business in Selma, Alabama. More now from ABC's Alex Perche.
Today, crowds gathered in Selma, Alabama to mark the 60th anniversary of a key turning point in the civil rights movement. Reverend Al Sharpton saying the fight for equality continues.
Today, they are threatening the same rights that they went across that bridge to deal with 60 years ago.
Demonstrators marching between there and Montgomery in 1965 in an effort to loosen Jim Crow's hold on the South. As they crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the 600 peaceful protesters were met by state troopers on horseback, armed with batons, tear gas, and hate. The chaos captured on camera, images spreading around the world. The moral outrage led to President Lyndon Johnson's signing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, just 5 months after what became known as Bloody Sunday. One of the march organizers was a boy from Troy, John Lewis, who would go on to serve more than 3 decades in Congress. In 2015, sharing a stage with Presidents Barack Obama and George W. Bush during the 50th anniversary ceremony. Lewis died in 2020. Tonight, his spirit and that of other civil rights icons marches on.
And when you see injustice, always be prepared to show up, to stand up, and to speak up for what is right.
Lindsay, since 2020, there have been several unsuccessful attempts to pass legislation named after Congressman John Lewis that would strengthen the Voting Rights Act. And most recently, a bill was introduced this week. Lindsay?
Alex, thank you.
By marching across Edmund Pettus Bridge, I said, oh, man. Sure enough, the cameras were there. And I said to myself, if Donald Trump is in front of that crowd with that march, I'm walking out this room. He wasn't there. And I said, glory, hallelujah, thank you. There's still some sanity in this world. Trump wasn't there. Oh, but Hakeem Jeffries was there. He was the minority leader in the House. His name, Hakeem. Circle's got the personality of a catcher's mitt. Just as boring. I mean, if that's the best they got, yeah, the Democrats are really in trouble. Hakeem was there. They had Jesse Jackson's old behind in a wheelchair all bent over. I don't know why he was there. Jesse Jackson, same guy that at the Rain Motel put on a fake bloody shirt and said he held Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his arms while he was dying, lied about it. You know, Jesse Jackson that called New York Hymantown, called black people the N-word, outside children. Yeah, that Jesse Jackson. I think Al Sharpton, with his conch, you know, Malcolm X said the conch was a visual representation of black self-hate. So I guess it's very cool and not necessarily right that he should have one, because he really is a visual representation of black self-hate. He was there. They had Maxine Waters old shriveled up behind there. She's walking. So it was the greatest hits of black failure and American failure on that bridge that day, walking in Selma, one of the poorest cities in the United States of America. Selma, Alabama. And one of the saddest things about it, y'all, the Washington Post covered it. So I saw it on the news that night. I said, well, that shouldn't make much news because it's such a stupid thing. I got up this morning. This is March 10th. Turned on picked up the newspaper, you know, on my phone, and said, at Selma's Civil Rights Anniversary, fears rise about the way forward. Fear. Fear. They said here in this story, to many here, including Richardson, the year's march felt more somber than usual. It took place against the backdrop of intense attacks on voting rights. Intense attacks on voting rights. On voting rights, education, and fair housing laws by President Donald Trump and his allies. In his first 2 months in office, Trump has also rolled back a litany of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs meant to correct age-old discrimination, and he has sought to restore what the White House has described as a merit-based opportunity that will promote national unity. Did you hear how they put that? It took place against the backdrop of intense attacks on voting rights, education, and fair housing laws by President Donald Trump and his allies. What a lie. And then there were concrete signs of what critics call an attempt to diminish or whitewash the nation's fraught racial history. The historic Montgomery bus station, housing and museum honoring the Freedom Riders who helped power the early civil rights movement, was among the federal properties that the administration indicated could be sold, though that list was later taken offline. They're trying to use fear as a tactic, y'all, because the Democratic Party is a murder machine. Its primary goal is to get power so it can kill people. Since Roe v. Wade, they've killed over 65 million children. The murder in the black community is astronomical all over the nation. We're beyond our rate of replacement. More people are dying in America than are being born, and the Democrat Party says full speed ahead because they are a murder machine. They want to take away your right to defend yourself with the Second Amendment because they want government to have all power. How does a free man defend his rights? The Second Amendment. The government doesn't defend your rights, you defend your rights. They want open borders. They want to allow fentanyl across the border. Drugs. Donald Trump is trying to put tariffs on Mexico and Canada for one reason, to keep the fentanyl out. Democrats are fighting him. Why? Because they want the fentanyl in. Why do they want the fentanyl in? Because Mexican cartels bring that stuff across the border. How do they keep the border open? The cartels have lawyers in Washington, D.C. These lawyers are also lobbyists. These lobbyists go to D.C. and they give these Democrats money to vote against and filibuster any attempt to seal that border. So the fentanyl just comes into America and kills American citizens. Over 100,000 citizens die a year from fentanyl poisoning. And the Democrats don't care. It's a murder machine. And then they got the hip-hop culture. Why would you celebrate a culture where the people that perform in that culture, the rappers and entertainers, have close to 40, their chance of getting murdered in America is 40 times higher than any other American citizen. A culture of rape, of violence, of sexual promiscuity, of racism, of misogyny, of misandry, all of it. And yet Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had a 50th anniversary celebration celebrating hip-hop. A genre that came out of the prisons and the ghettos of America, celebrating the worst of human life, elevating it, making money off of it. Just like the dope game, just like the abortion industry. Yeah, that's your Democratic Party. Party of perverts, liars, psychopaths, anti-Christian bigots, thugs, hoes, and rappers. So they walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, singing, of course, "We shall overcome." Selma is one of the poorest cities in the United States of America, and they're talking about Voting Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and voting. Why is that important, y'all? The Democratic Party can only keep power, and they can use that power to murder and kill people only if black people vote in large numbers for them, and that's like 90%. And black people vote 90% for the Democratic Party when they are afraid, not when they're hopeful, when they're scared. The Democratic Party murder machine. Donald Trump says, we want peace between Russia and Ukraine. People are dying daily. Millions have died. And the Democratic Party says, no, we want the war to continue. Let's give them more money to kill more people. Do you see how sane they are? He brings Zelensky to the White House and says, let's make peace. He talked to Putin. Putin said, let's make peace. Zelensky shows his behind at the White House, and the Democrats support Zelensky for not making peace. You know what? Murder machine. And so they need the black vote to keep this murder machine going. So here's what they say, again, the Washington Post story. People are afraid. That's the quote from Selma Mayor James Perkins, Jr., Democrat. But Perkins told this to a room of more than 36 members of Congress and other elected officials, mostly Democrats, who had descended on his majority African-American city, where many residents still live below the poverty line. Now, I don't say many, most. Perkins, who grew up in Selma under segregation laws and is the city's first black mayor. All right, go Perkins. First black mayor. He proud of that. I'm the first black mayor of Selma. First black man to make a white man standard. That's how all those stupid fools think. He likened that fear to what he felt as a child when his grandparents shoved him under a bed to hide as members of the Ku Klux Klan drove through the city, terrorizing black members. Well, that tells it all, don't it? Shoved him under the bed. Daddy should have got a gun, went out there and shot them off their horses. They wouldn't have rode through there anymore.